Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another LinkedIn Live session for ADHD Awareness Month here at Empower ADHD. We're focusing every day on different aspects of ADHD, some of the many faces that it can present. So welcome. I hope you've been enjoying some of these lunchtime sessions. My name's Kim. I'm one of the international crew associated with or working for Empower ADHD and Stephanie. I'm joining you from Melbourne. So I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to share a little bit about friendships and ADHD with you. Uh, Friendships are pretty important. And this a really great source of joy. It can also be a tricky space for a lot of people with ADHD. So today I thought we'd have a little bit of time to dive into the experience that and having an ADHD diagnosis can create for within a friendship, and some of the areas that I thought we'd specifically focus on firstly was to touch on the strengths, the many strengths that are really unique for ADHDs, and how they can really enhance a friendship and enhance our enjoyment of friendships. We'll also talk about some of the challenges that ADHD throws into the mix with our friendships, and we can have a little a look at how coaching can support us to nurture the kind of friendships and connections that may feel really supportive and authentic. So friendships are definitely something that I'm sure all of us really want in our life. You know, they're super meaningful and they give us connection and they give us a sense of companionship and belonging. They bring a lot of joy and a lot of sense of being seen, not necessarily for what we've achieved or where we're from, but authentically for who we are. Friendships are essential, I think. We know that connection through friendship has an integral part of being a human. We're naturally social creatures, and we've lived and evolved in groups for survival for millennia. And strong social ties and connections are really crucial for survival, but also, we know, for a balanced mental and physical health. Really, friends make life easier and more fun. You know, having someone to share our ups and downs with, and someone that inspires us perhaps to reach for more and be the best version of ourselves is truly worth having in our life. So, what are some of the unique qualities that ADHDs bring? Well, they bring many. I know as a coach that all of my clients have been amazing. They are amazing people with amazing qualities, and they have a lot to offer and do offer a lot to their friendships. So I thought today it would be great to kick the ball off or kick the session off with some focus on some of these incredible qualities. The first of which is a deep empathy and passionate support. Many people with ADHD have a really strong emotional awareness and a deep level of intelligence. And when that's combined with deep compassion, place them into being powerful means of support, but also really great cheerleaders. We know that we can really feel alongside of our friends, and that can just be a powerful sense of support. If you have a friend with ADHD, if you're having a tough time, then they're really going to go through that with you. Likewise, they can bring a lot of really infectious energy if something is really exciting happening in your life. Your ADHD friend is going to be right there beside you, bringing boundless energy and passion to that friendship. Another quality is incredible creativity and fun. Friendships with ADHDs definitely feel more alive. And one of the reasons for that is uh, usually great senses of humour and those creative, fresh ideas that ADHDs have really make friendships feel a lot more vibrant. Um, there is a lot of joy and laughter in an ADHD friendship. That sense of humour and the spontaneity that can come with that is really lifts friendships up. There's certainly a lot of fun to not be constrained by the social norms as rigorously as perhaps neurotypical friendships may bring. The other quality is just an incredible level of acceptance and inclusivity. I think many of my clients, are really open-minded and genuinely offer incredible inclusiveness in and acceptance in their friendships. Often that comes from a first-hand experience of having difficulties or having a sense of feeling different, and it really places them at in a great situation to be very empathetic and getting right alongside of a friend that may be facing a similar difficulty or any kind of difficulty. That personal understanding and lived experience really supports a nurturing and accepting environment for building a strong and deep connection, and also a connection that feels very real and often very safe. The last quality I think that is really worth mentioning for ADHD is the incredible diversity of divergent thinking that ADHD brains have. ADHDs are able to offer really unique perspectives and very creative, knowledgeable perspectives on lots of different things. And that comes from a strength that we have with divergent thinking. Bringing a refreshingly different way to look at a situation or a really intense level of knowledge around something can really enhance a friendship and make it feel really stimulating. Um, Although often we focus in ADHD is with the difficulty with focus or attention, we actually know that all ADHDs, when they find something interesting and stimulating, they can have this thing called hyperfocus, which is a state of really intense concentration on any subject that they may find stimulating or interesting. And it gives them an incredible capacity to take on board a lot of information and become a real expert on something really quite rapidly. What this brings to a friendship is they can become very engaging and interesting conversationalists that are real experts on topics. This can really lead to genuine connections and shared interests, particularly, if you have a shared passion. Certainly, you want an ADHD on your team. If you're ever doing trivia, they are the best trivia mates to have ever, in my experience. So, there are some of the unique challenges, some of the unique strengths, for having an ADHD in your friendship team. Really great, really, really great things to be considering highlighting if you do have friends with ADHD, or if you are someone with ADHD, hopefully some of those unique qualities you bring have resonated. That said, we do know that maintaining friendships and sometimes making friendships can be a commonly difficult area for many ADHDs, and it can be something that can be challenging throughout life. Certainly not uncommon in my experience as a coach to hear from a lot of adults that are newly diagnosed that their social and relationship issues have often precursed or prompted diagnosis. So when we combine some knowledge around what ADHD is and knowing the difference that it brings with our executive functioning skills, it can be a lot easier for us to make sense of why friendships can feel really challenging. So let's take a closer look at some of those aspects of executive functioning that can create some of those navigational difficulties. I guess the first area to touch on is that of communication. Communication is the cornerstone of strong social skills. It encompasses listening, active listening. It encompasses being able to focus and pay attention throughout a conversation, so that we have good insight into what to share and how to share it and perhaps when to share it. It also involves, holding on to information so that we can share it when the moment is right. So some of the difficulties that we have with our executive functioning means that we have a lot of challenge with maintaining attention. We also can lose focus in a conversation, particularly if we're not finding it interesting. That boredom kicks in, then our busy brain is already moving on to something else. The other thing too that we know can be a challenge is to regulate our emotions, which is another aspect of executive function. If we are particularly bored or if we're particularly excited, combined with those challenges around working memory, it can really mean that holding onto our thoughts instead of blurting them out can really be challenging. So some of the ways that these executive function challenges show up in friendships look like excessive talking. It can look like talking rapidly or really fast. It can really look like oversharing at times. And it can look like interrupting. And obviously these sorts of things can inadvertently, prevent our friends from having a chance to speak. It can mean we perhaps speak in a way that comes across as being a bit insensitive if we haven't considered the impact of our words. Or perhaps, it can look like we're stealing the spotlight unintentionally because we're, so fixated on sharing and oversharing all the things that are exciting us in that moment. And, that's a problem if our friends have lost interest and we're not noticing, or that perhaps we're sharing things that actually are not really related to the conversation. So obviously communication is something that needs to be balanced and shared well, and understanding those nuances, but also that our communication is balanced and meaningful can be a challenge with ADHD. Another aspect that I think is really, I hear clients speak a lot about is with me is reliability. I often refer to ADHD as being consistently inconsistent, and I think that that's a lived experience that many ADHDs can relate to. But really, reliability is something that we do need in friendships in order for them to be trustworthy, I guess, and also consistent. So we have them to rely on. What reliability looks like or can look like in a friendship with ADHD in the mix is that we can struggle with that. We can find ourselves cancelling plans at the last minute, maybe running late, forgetting things, or going missing in action for days or weeks or maybe even months on end. So some of the common executive function challenges that are really supporting our capacity to show up reliably are one big one is the challenges that we have with managing time. You may have heard of the term time blindness. This is a common aspect of ADHD. And what that means is we have an internal, our internal body clock just is a bit different to those of our neurotypical peers. We don't sense or perceive time in the same way, and we just notice it passing a lot of the time. And that can really lead to a lot of impacts on our friendships. It can mean we lose track of time and run late. It can mean that we have a lot of trouble estimating how long it may take, and therefore we either undercommit or overcommit to being somewhere at a certain time. It can also mean that we have challenges with planning out what we have time for, meaning that we may find that we have a lot of difficulty sticking to plans that we may have already made with our friends. Another bugbear with time is the challenge it creates with planning and organisation. We can, in the moment, have a lot of trouble considering what's coming up and inadvertently commit to something on the spot because it excites us or we feel really interested in it, and it may mean that we overlook aspects of our own life, upcoming events or things that are already scheduled, and then we find ourselves double booked or taking on more than we can handle. And this can really place us into really significant dilemmas that are stressful and distressing to navigate. Many clients say that it puts them into situations where they're feeling like they're having to choose, and perhaps they're showing up into their friendships with a last-minute cancellation or running very late, or they're showing up really overwhelmed and really stressed, highly masking perhaps, and that's not how they really want to be showing up in a friendship, and it can often show through as someone showing up in a way that really doesn't represent the value that that friendship perhaps may be offering. We certainly want to feel loved and appreciated and valued. And, if time and organisation are interfering with our reliability, then that can definitely lead to misunderstandings with our friends and hurt feelings, no question. And I think the last point to touch on that's really important is the challenge that we have within our executive functions of regulating our emotions and being able to regulate them in a way that supports us to, show up and enjoy our friendships. And one of the most common challenges that many of my clients experience or share is that relating to some anxiousness or fearfulness within their friendships. And it really comes down to their perception of how they're being perceived in a relationship. And we talk about that a lot with that coexisting condition that comes with ADHD for many people, which is rejection sensitivity dysphoria, or RSD. What this is it really refers to sort of an intense feeling that's related to the belief or a perception that we've perhaps let people down, or we've embarrassed ourselves, or we've failed at something, or we've made a serious unfixable mistake, and as a result that people will not care for us or not want us to be around, or not love and respect us. And it can really create a lot of emotional distress and pain, physical pain sometimes for ADHDers. When we perceive that, if we may have friends that, aren't caring for us in the same way, it can really challenge us to let go of, past hurts and past rejections or experiences where perhaps we had an unkind word directed towards us at some level. It's hard to shake off the comments, even if they were relatively harmless. We can take on this belief that in some way perhaps we deserved them. And it can really shift our view sometimes on friendships and, cause us to feel, unvalued, or that we are the problem within a friendship. And that can hold us back from, exploring new friendships, or, extending our friendships with our current friends to that deeper level. So, how do we tackle these sorts of things in coaching? Well, coaching can be a great place for getting meaningful support with any aspect of friendships. But really, when I'm working with clients, the areas that we build from are firstly that of building a really accurate and strong self-awareness of who we are. What that looks like is understanding ourselves at our core. What are our strengths? What are the beautiful things we bring into our friendships? What do we value about our friendships? And really, we focus in on finding evidence of those things. The other area of focus and work, often as a coach, is to build a really sound and knowledge about our brains and how ADHD, what it is and how it shows up for us. Understanding our brain neurology really can be a powerful shifting point of how we view ourselves within our friendships. And, for many of my clients, this process of learning more about their ADHD helps to shift their perspective on, how they may be viewing themselves within friendships. And it starts to shift them towards often a more self-compassionate understanding of themselves. When we have greater self-compassion that comes through that knowledge and awareness, it relieves us of that pressure to have to show up when everything's perfect. And it can give us better permission to have some boundaries if we need, to give ourselves permission to cancel sometimes if it's needed, rather than having to show up and mask our way through what may be a really exhausting situation. But it can also build a level of confidence to perhaps share with our friends some of the struggles that our ADHD may be throwing into the mix with our friendships. And it can be just a great opportunity to shift a view of everything feeling impossible to perhaps opening up our mind to what feels possible. So coaching, is a great opportunity to explore and deepen your friendships if this is an area that you are feeling a bit stuck on, and you're not quite sure how to take things to another level with your friends. I would definitely encourage you to have a think about considering some coaching or having a chat with myself or someone else in our team to learn more if today's discussion has piqued your curiosity. So thanks for joining me. I hope today was interesting and that you've learnt something new about either yourself or your friends. And I hope that is information that you can take away and take some small steps on to take you to a level of really meaningful and connected and joyful friendships that last you for the rest of your life. Thanks for joining me.